Dr. Anuradha Choudry is a scholar and eloquent speaker specializing in Sanskrit, Indian psychology, French, and the history of Indian science and technology in ancient India. She is a coordinator for the Indian Knowledge Systems Division of the Ministry of Education, Government of India at AICTE, New Delhi, and a faculty member in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. She was one of the distinguished guest speakers at the second Global Vedic Conference held at Prasanthi Nilayam in January 2026.
I'm sure that Sanskrit chose me to start with. And then I don't think if there wasn't a soul opening, then it would have happened. So I guess it was a mutual process. So I was very fortunate to grow up in the Sri Aurobindo International Center of Education in Pondicherry. And one of the unique features of this system of education, which is all the way from kindergarten till college, which we call knowledge, is that right from kindergarten, we are taught two languages, French and Sanskrit. The Sanskrit language, because both the mother and Sri Aurobindo were convinced that if one wants to understand Bharata, as you rightly said, then one has to know Sanskrit because it is the language of Bharata's soul. And therefore, if one knows Sanskrit, then we can directly get in touch with the spirit of this land and this civilization. I would just be careful about saying pure, impure, because today these are very politically loaded words. But it is definitely one of the very important gateways to accessing the experience of Bharata. And that is also because language is a carrier of experiences, of direct experiences. And that is one dimension. The second is it is also a shaper of our thoughts. Keeping this in mind, the mother had also introduced French because she said that the manner in which French shapes our thinking is more precise than English does. And what I mean by that is that there is this dissonance in English, circumstantially, between what you see and what you read, what you speak, and what you hear. So there is no direct correlation between the three of them. So if I'm saying, let's say, T-O-O-L is tool, then you write D-O-O-R, then one says door. No, it's door. So there is no reliable consistency in the relationship between sound, the written, and the speech of those words. So this can cause a cognitive dissonance if it is given very early on, is what was a thought. So French has a more structured grammatic base and expression because it comes more directly from the Latin origins, and which again has Sanskritic connections, big Sanskrit connections. So, and plus the mother herself was French, so a lot of her writings are in French. So these were the reasons why Sanskrit and French were taught early on in school, in the kindergarten, in fact. And the mother even went on to say, she said, just as every child born in France knows French, every child born in India must know Sanskrit. So she went really as far as that. So one added advantage in our school is that Sanskrit is taught in Sanskrit, unlike in what happens to it in many other parts of the country, where it gets taught more in the regional languages. So this was an opportunity for me to get to appreciate or connect to the direct spirit and beauty of the language. And as I went ahead and learned all those forms, learned the shlokas, and later on, as I got exposed to etymology, what the word would mean. So these things really fascinated me about the language. And then coming on to my knowledge or college life, then I was doing a study on the Vedas. And I came across these two quotations of Sri Aurobindo. The first one being that the recovery of the perfect truth of the Vedas is not merely a desideratum of modern intellectual curiosity, but a practical necessity for the future of the human race.
Wow.
So, that really for me, since my guru had said something as important as that, it got stuck as something that is very important to follow up with. An important mission to pursue, possibly. Then there was this other quotation, I don't remember the full quotation offhand, but the paraphrasing of it would be that I don't seek science, I seek a knowledge that is ready to question everything and not push everything else as superstition. He puts in a lot of adjectives and qualities about what this knowledge contains, but basically that it's a knowledge which is very ancient and yet ready to adapt, question everything and adapt itself to modern life. And then at the end he says that Yasmin Vijñate Sarvam Vijñatam, which is from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. And then he says, knowing which everything here is known. And he says it's the Veda. So again, for me, that was a very big awakening, because somebody as knowledgeable as Sri Aurobindo across so many knowledge traditions, when he puts such a importance on the Vedas, then this text had to be understood. And I was a bit, let's say, lazy. I said, if there is one such knowledge, knowing which everything is known, then that becomes worth pursuing early on in life. So I took that up, and none of them could have happened without Sanskrit. And therefore I chose to pursue Sanskrit. And then there was the question from society, what are you going to do with Sanskrit? Because again, circumstantially and by design, by colonial design, the Sanskrit language has got restricted to very few domains of study, like, the Sahitya, so this literature, or Vyakarana, Darshanas, Vedas, maybe linguistics. These are oceans in themselves. But unfortunately, in the contemporary world, there is no direct relevance and applications of these subjects in terms of how people are using it, let's say, for job purposes.
Exactly.
So what happens is that the entire scope of Sanskrit has, because of, like I said, this colonial design, got very restricted to selection by few, and then no creativity around where all it can be applied. So today the field is growing significantly, with IKS coming in, with computer science coming in. So computational Sanskrit, for example, is becoming a big thing. Recently with Central Sanskrit University, we are designing a whole lot of double bachelor's courses, 4-year honors courses on Sanskrit and tourism, Sanskrit and commerce, Sanskrit and defense studies, Sanskrit and psychology. So we are trying to see how Sanskrit has spoken about a lot of subjects, and how it can still continue to converse and offer a lot to the contemporary world. So these are very exciting times in the Sanskrit world, where, for about 5,000 years, this language has contained some of the most sophisticated languages that the human mind could have, sophisticated thoughts that the human mind could have conceived of. All of that was documented in the Sanskrit texts. And if we don't have the language, we don't have access to that entire repository, the treasure house of knowledge and wisdom that is there, and a high percentage of scientific knowledge as well. Yes. So I was talking to Sumaji, and I told her, what is the kind of volume of manuscripts that are there? It's anything between 4 million to 30 million manuscripts that we are sort of know about. And we don't have a base that can, study this and bring that back. And there's a lot of high-end research happening, where people know the worth of these texts, and new cutting-edge things are moving on. So I'll give you an example. There's 2 friends of ours in Germany, engineers, who came up with a kind of a technology for creating a propeller. A usual propeller uses like a spiral technology, it cuts the air like that. So they came up with a technique, or one of them specifically came up with a technique which cuts the air like a wheel. So where the blades are also rotating, etc. So very happy of his creation. It's more effective, etc. So very happy. He announced it on LinkedIn. A German plasma physicist wrote back to him. He says, what you have said is fascinating, but I really think you should look at your own texts with a similar technology is being referred to. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, they go and find it in a text related to the Vimana Shastras. Mm-hmm. So there is so much, and the key is there, but lost to our plain sight. And therefore, how does one tap into it and learn more about it? So when I was talking about livelihood options, there was a shloka from the Panchatantra which came to my rescue, which has been my life principle in a sense. So it said, Praptavyam artham labhate manushyaha. The money that you have to get, a person gets. Devopitam langhaitum na shaktaha. Even the gods cannot change that. Tasmat na shochami, na vismayome. That's why I'm not worried, nor am I surprised. Yadasmadiyam na hitat paresham. So what is mine, it will not be anybody else's. So I said, great. If this is true, I said, working hypothesis, I said, if this is true, and I think that, because I need to earn money, I need to study management or some other journalism or something, and there is no money written in my forehead, then I will neither have studied what I loved and I would have not got the money. I said, now, second case scenario. I don't have money written in my forehead. So I will study Sanskrit. At least I would have spent my time studying what I'm passionate about and which Guruji, my guru, has said is like very vital. Third, supposing both is there, then it's a jackpot. I'm teaching at an IIT, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I
With
think,
Sanskrit.
as they say, seek the kingdom of God and everything else shall be added on to you. I think if the mantra says that it will take care of you, I think if you have dedicated yourself to that and it will take care of you, I think there is no question about that. And that's what your life has shown.
True. If I can just add to that, because we again underestimate the fact that all of us are transmitting beings. We are electrical signals. Basically, the human body is nothing but one very complex electrical signaling machine. So we are emitting signals all the time. And the environment is also nothing but vibratory energy stuff. So what we are emitting is what we are amplifying around us. So when it comes to mantras, it really is systematized sound technology, where just by the fact of uttering certain sounds into the atmosphere, we can restructure the atmosphere to resonate with that. And we will draw that because that is what we are. That is what we are. Yeah. So I think this is a very important...
I think, as you said, we are just vibrational beings.
Exactly.
We are just vibrational energies. And I think that's the reason why we have seen miracles happen through just the chanting of mantras. The rishis could go in and discover secrets that today modern science, even after spending billions of dollars, is struggling to corroborate. But they just went in and they have already given us all those secrets. And one thing that you mentioned, that whatever has to come to you, it will anyway come to you. So you don't really have to go after it. In a way, a life of surrender, a life of faith, a life of trust, a life of leaving everything in God's hand, so that you will see God's hand in everything later on.
True. No, I totally agree with that, but I have a slightly different angle to add to that as well. Because while we say that we don't go after it, what is important is that whether we like it or not, we are emitting.
Yes.
We are emitting signals into the universe, whether we like it or not. So when we say about, that we have to let go, in my understanding, what it implies is we have to get more and more clarity about what you want. So while it is a letting go at oneself in terms of a surrender, there has to also be a parallel movement of gaining more clarity. Because what you start getting more clarity about is the very concept or the essence of the idea of sankalpa. The word sankalpa comes from the root klip, which means to create. Sam means from all directions. So when one makes a sankalpa, it's a very conscious creation in the being of what they are focused towards. And that then at every level starts emanating into a realization, a manifestation really. So the surrender is definitely the most important aspect of the entire process. But in order to achieve it fully, it's not enough to just say surrender and the being do a lot of other noisy stuff. Because then even if the gods are trying to help you, it will not enter. Because there is so much of other noise. It can be subconscious fears that you're failure. It can be so many other kinds of levels of confusion. So this, if I may add here, is the crux of the whole idea of the Vedic Yajnya. what the Vedic Yajnya says, also coming from the root yaj, to adore, to worship, but even going back to a root yat. Yat in Sanskrit means that which. So if I start a sentence like that which laughs, I cannot stop it there. I will have to end is always happy. For example, it closes a circuit. Similarly, there was an understanding of the rishis, not just an understanding, it was a drishti. Because in the Upanishads, it's full of this particular saying that says, Yah pashyati sah pashyati. One who sees, sees. And that seeing is a knowledge. You've just seen it, that drishti of things. So what they say is that, what they saw is that the universe is in a massive process of an exchange. There is a giving that is happening all the time, and there is a receiving that is happening. So the big question is, what are we giving to and what are we receiving? First question. Second question, why are we giving? Because the what and the why play an important role in determining what and why come to us. So to make it more explicit. So supposing I'm giving my energies to knowledge. Okay, so I'm giving to knowledge. Even within that, the rishis recognized that there are two sets of forces largely. They're the forces of light and they're the forces of darkness. So the forces of light are devas, coming down to the root div, meaning divine, the light, it means that. And the dasyus comes from the root dah, which means to tear and divide. So there are all those forces that are constantly trying to tear us up, cover our sight, tear us, not allow us to be centered and in harmony, and all the vices and all that we see, the Shadripus, and all of them have these properties in how they behave in our consciousness. So we have the option of offering to these two. Now, supposing I have a neutral subject like knowledge. I want to acquire knowledge. So I'm offering my time and resources and energies into the acquisition of knowledge. But supposing I'm doing this because I want to become famous, then immediately I'm working on the side of the dasyus. What I mean by that is that it gets into a bargaining mode. If I get this, then I will get that. If I get this. So the end or the process of achieving that end will be full of very different pathways. Then if I say I want to offer to knowledge because I just want to acquire as much knowledge, I want to do an Aradhana of Saraswati Ma. They're two very different approaches. So the why is very critical of what one is doing at the basis. So what Sri Aurobindo says when he talks about the symbolism of the Vedas, he says that first of all, the recognition that everything is in a process of exchange. And this yajna that he's talking about is not a one-time, naimittika karma or a yajna. He says it is a moment-to-moment thing. At every single moment, we are either offering to the forces of light, and the bad news is if you're not doing it consciously, we're on the other side by default. Okay, so we have to, therefore, it's a call because the ambience is of darkness. So therefore, we have to very consciously. So we're either playing the card of light or we're playing the card of darkness. We are either playing the card of expansions or we are playing the card of contractions. And with every thought, every speech, every act. So then they say, how do we go about this yajna process in the Vedas? You have to light Agni. Right? So what is Agni? So Sri Aurobindo says his way of arriving at the essence of the Vedas was by taking us to the root of the words. So he says Agni comes from Agre Nayati iti Agni, that which takes us forward. Now, why is that particular name given to that particular object? Because it is just one of the many names that is given to Agni. So he says that, so if you look at the element itself, if you light a candle and you place it downwards, what happens? The flame will burn up. So the very property of that substance is that no matter which direction you put it, it will always push you upwards. So psychologically, it corresponded to our will. Okay, the will. And what was the primordial will? It was the will of aspiration. The reason why Agni Devata came into the darkness to bring light in the darkness. So that was the original story of the purpose of why each one of us is here. Because that original aspiration to grow towards light, which Baba and all always kept reminding, all these great souls, they keep trying to remind us that, there was a fire that was lit.
Correct.
Protect it, look after it, which is, in a sense, the concept of the Agnihotram in its symbolic sense. that while you keep an external fire lit, this fire has to keep burning all the time. So it's about lighting that fire. Now, once that fire has been lit, like we know any external fire, if you don't nurture it, it will die down. So luckily this one doesn't die, but it will get really smothered with many other things. So you have to light it up. Now, once it has been lit, what do we offer? Ghritta. So again, go to the root of the word. It comes from ghr, which means to shine. So what is the shining parts of our willpower and thought? It's clarity of thoughts. So once that fire of the will has been lit, so if one wants to engage in any action, you have to start by lighting that will, I want to, that willpower. Once that has happened, then how do you keep it burning? Our head normally is a bit like butter. It's opaque. We have to keep adding the fire. The more fire we add to it, the more it gets transparent and clear. So the clarity of thoughts then feeds that fire. Okay, then that fire burns brighter. Now, once that fire burns brighter, then it is also accompanied with the mantra. What is the mantra? The mantra is the word of truth. When we say the word of truth, it is again the larger context of the fact that sounds have intrinsic vibrations. And therefore, in terms of conveying experience. So when these sounds are placed in a particular sequence, they are bound to result in a particular effect in the internal worlds as well as in the external worlds. It's again a different question of how do we optimize that effect? What should be the consciousness with which they are chanted to experience the optimized effect? But in the Vedic, in the context of this inner ritual, once the mantras are chanted, which means that the word of truth, so if the will has been lit for a certain purpose, to know how to talk about it, to articulate it, and the wisdom to know where to do so. Because in today's world where words are very cheap, in the market of, in the marketplace of opinions, we don't really understand the power of the uttered sound and what it does to a consciousness. So to know where to place it, because if it's placed in the wrong environment, the vibratory negative negation of it can again be detrimental. So one has to know how to place it and where to place it, but to have honesty around it. And then finally, Sri Aurobindo says one of the most important, other ingredients have their role, but I'll just stick to the three principal ones that are highlighted. So then he talks about the Soma Rasa. So the Soma Rasa is something that in the Vedic story also the gods drink the Soma, and then they're so in bliss that they can go into any battle. Now, if you actually look at the parallel in life, when somebody is drunk, they have so much of courage. They're ready to say anything to anybody and do anything, really, right? Similarly, when one is drunk on this Soma, so the question is, what is this Soma? And the whole world is trying to chase this. What is this Soma? Is it a mushroom? Is it a this? Is it a plant? Is it a what? So again, Sri Aurobindo takes it back to the source word. So he said it comes from the root su, means to press. So it is this pressing out the essence of things, which you have to feed back. Now, in life's experiences, if you know how to press out, what are we pressing out? We're distilling out the ananda. When we chose to do something, we decided to do it because it will give us joy. But then invariably, as we pursue, there are so many obstacles that we forget why we took it up. So that ananda gets lost. But if we remember that that objective was chosen to give us that ananda, then we'll know how to keep pressing out that essence and putting that back into the willpower and then keep going. Then that gives that ananda of final, discovery is what keeps us fighting whatever battles come on our way. So that's the Purnahuti also. Give this all into it, and then this fire of inner aspiration can reach its fullness. So if I have to just draw parallels with the way the Satya Sai organization functions, what I notice is this extreme bhakti towards the Bhagavan and the joy of just being in the presence, whether he's there in his body or it's not there, doesn't seem to have impacted the quality of ananda that the bhaktas enjoy in the vicinity. So sometimes people come from such far off places with such challenges, I'm sure, with myriads of obstacles in terms of just family commitment, work commitments, this, that. But still, what is it that keeps people coming here in spite of all? It's this Agni that has been lit for this particular seva. And then one keeps, one has to utter the mantra, the power of the mantra, the clarity to get here. And then the ananda of just being there finally, and which is, I think, irreplaceable in its own sense.
It's interesting, many times my vision of Prasanthi Nilayam also is a yajna. And I think that this is a yajna which Bhagwan started.
Absolutely.
Way back in 1950 when Swami inaugurated Prasanthi Nilayam. And from then on, the ahutis that has been done to this yajna are the sacrifices, the purity of the people, their selflessness. As you mentioned, the clarity of thought, their clear earnestness to dedicate themselves in selfless service.
Correct.
I think that purity is what has poured into this fire, and this fire has continued to burn.
Correct.
And that's how it's continued to give ananda. And that Soma Rasa, people pour into this the essence of their lives, and then they are in ecstasy again at the joy of the effulgence of this fire.
Correct. So if I may just add here, so the idea, I only told half the story of what we have to do. The promise of the Vedas is if we can do that, then the gods shower us with their blessings. So you get the horses, which is the power, internal energies to continue this work. You get the cows, which are the illuminations. You get insights, you get illuminations. You get gold, the purity of experience, the unadulterated joys of things. You get the children, you get the sons. Sons means newer and newer experiences. Every time you come, otherwise, if there is no replenishing, there is no rejuvenation, then the motivation would be altered. But because there is a constant, like you said, the yajna is on, and the yajna doesn't have to be performed by you only necessarily. There is a collective, there is the individual and there's the collective. So if that yajna is on, and if you're part of it in some process, whether you're directly holding the arti or you're holding it through somebody, if you're part of that process, then it's a punya karma that's shared by everybody. But there is also then the responsibility of not putting things that will bring smoke.
Correct.
Having said that, this is the only fire that has so fire is the only element that can consume everything. And reduce it to nothing.
Yes.
So if one wants to burn up all one's karmas and whatever thoughts that are troubling and all, then selflessly again to offer it, to say this is what it is, please purify. And then you allow it to work.
I think that's also the inspiration and the instruction of Bhagwan also. Whenever we used to have these yajnas, the Atirudra Mahayajna, so pour all your negativity into it, because fire can consume everything and make it brilliant.
Exactly.
And give you joy and give you warmth.
Yes.
And as you said, finally bring you blessings from the divine.
Correct.
And I think that is what is constantly happening here in Prasanthi Nilayam. And because mantras are also being chanted every day, morning and evening, you have mantras being chanted every day. Rudram is being chanted in the ashram. And in the early years, Rudram learning and Vedic hymns learning happened right from the 60s. But around 2003, 2004, Bhagwan made it mandatory for Vedam chanting to happen every single day. When he came out for darshan, he said the Vedam chanting should start. Perhaps this is what the world needed. Perhaps just so that this whole vibrations spreads, and because it's happening in Prasanthi Nilayam, it's happening in the entire Satyasai ecosystem.
Absolutely. No, you're very, very right on that. And also the fact that people who are sensitive can also recognize that when a chanting like that takes place. So maybe just before, the atmosphere has certain subtle structures in the air, which consists of people's thoughts, emotions. That has its vibratory impact on the atmosphere. And then when you do these chants, they sort of bring in a cosmic vibration into that place and give us all a direct access to that, to the broadening of our beings. Otherwise, we all live caged within our own limited structures of identity, who we think we are, and what we think we are capable of doing, not doing, and all of that. So we are always stuck within this caged structures, vibrational structures and patterns of being. But when we are exposed to these universal sounds, these cosmic vibrations, then it allows us to, for some time at least, restructure this inner. And if there is a resonance within, then that gets amplified. And then one suddenly feels that expansion just in the presence of the chanting. And I think when the definition of the mantra, which is Mananath Trayate iti mantra, one of its etymological definitions, so you can see that this continuous thinking about it, manana. But here it is also ucharana. But manana trayate, one is protected. In what way is one protected? The way I understand it is because normally we are caught in this pettiness of self, which has limited functionality in its actions. But when we get exposed to the cosmic nature of our own presence, then what is there to fear? So it charges the individual with a very different energy level in order to face whatever one is, just because one has a connection to the vast.
So I think that self-confidence, where that S is not that limited S.
Capital S.
It's the capital S.
Correct.
And I think what you mentioned, that's the reason why when people come to Prasanthi Nilayam, when they're sitting in the Sai Kulwant hall, you will find a lot of them, something happens within.
Correct.
Dams break within.
Correct.
And for some reason, they are crying. I have seen that on so many occasions.
Correct.
For some reason, something has opened up which was locked for decades.
Correct.
And that's the reason why they say the biggest miracle of Bhagavan, this transformation of the heart, transformation that happened within.
Correct. Totally agree. In fact, I've myself been touched, overwhelmed, in fact, a few times during the chant bhajans and all. Just that there is a lot of love. Unconditional love of Bhagavan is something which is very touching and transformative, I would say.
I think when you are touched by pure love, something happens, which perhaps even words will find it difficult to express, but your soul knows.
Correct.
And for a lot of people, Prasanthi, the Sanctum Sanctorum, it is the most love-charged place on the planet.
I think it's at the end of the day, the presence and the quality of being that will touch and transmute.
Yes.
And I think what Bhagavan and many other masters are trying to tell us is that while one adores them, that is not enough.
Correct.
One has to emulate it in one's own life, because the world, the creation needs it.
Correct.
The Mother Nature needs the support. In fact, again, coming back to the Vedic story, the role of the human being, the individual, is enormous, because it is only in the human birth that this battle of the gods and the dasyus, the devas and the dasyus, is taking place. And the critical decision that the individual, who's the Yajamana, makes is what is going to decide the tipping of that balance at a world level.
Yes.
Because the world consists of individuals, and that adds up.
Yeah.
So every individual is critical. Every individual's choices at all times is critical in determining whether this Maha Yajna and the battle that our great masters have worked towards is successful or not. They've come and gone, they continue to have their impact, but it is insufficient because newer and newer vibratory patterns are coming in, newer and newer. So even if there was a lot of light at some point, but if we keep piling it up with darkened movements and patterns, that light will get hidden. It doesn't disappear, it gets hidden. And then that has consequences in which everything else happens, which is what the whole Kali Yuga story is about. So how does one, but within that darkness, if there are people who stick up like lights like that, and you light your fire, then the whole place will become like a bonfire.
Yes.
So in the ashram, the mother used to say, she said, in the world, just based on the arithmetic of the numbers, she says, if we have a force of at least 50,000 souls who are genuinely calling down the light and becoming pure light, that can tip the balance of the 7 billion people.
Oh.
That's why she actually started Auroville as a project in Pondicherry, where she said that people of all parts of the world can come together and live in harmony and work on very alternative divine paradigms of existence. It's a tough call, but it's a call nonetheless, and it's a vision that remains valid to be realized.
I think in the recent times, we do see a lot of people moving on to this level of consciousness.
Correct.
I think there is a lot more appreciation of what is there in our ancient traditions. People are now very serious about unlocking the secrets that have been locked for generations. I think definitely these are very exciting times, very happy times. From while we see a lot of things that we would not want it to happen in the world, at the same time we see a generation which is very aware.
True.
At very young age, isn't
I
it?
totally agree with you. I recently had an encounter with some young girls for an event. We were hosting the Mysuru Yoga Utsava in Mysore. Every December we do that event. But there were these young girls from S. Vyasa University and all. And each one of them was so wise. They were so beautiful in the way they look at life, the way that they've all gone through their own experiences, but they've molded themselves into something very beautiful from there. So very hopeful from that perspective. And while I think on the other side, because whenever there's light that tries to grow, the darkness, all the forces of darkness get very, worried, and they try and smother that effort, and they'll try their level best. So I guess right now at this moment of consciousness, which they say is in these moments, the tipping of consciousness is happening astronomically also. So what I would say is that when this light is trying to grow because of what contributions, what has happened and all, these forces are now, it's like a survival thing. So they are trying their level best to bring in as much chaos and darkness and all of that in the world. So if we can just keep oiling the lamp
yes.
in the right way possible, and keeping that faith and joy that ultimately victory, light shall vanquish darkness.
If Krishna is on your side, then the victory is always on your side.
Yes.
I think that is the only exercise that we have to be on Krishna's side.
Sathya.
We have to see on the side of Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema, Ahimsa.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, earlier when you were talking about surrender, or even later on, ultimately, whatever we do, if the goal is towards Chitta Suddhi,
correct,
I think then automatically everything will be aligned. The thought, word, deed,
correct,
everything will be, because Swami said, I have not set up this Satyasaya organization. When someone asks Swami, why the Satyasaya organization? It is not set up to, open any number of free hospitals or remove poverty or remove, this problem that is faced by humanity, or to propagate the name of Satyasai everywhere. No. The only goal of Satyasaya organization is Chitta Suddhi for every individual.
My God. So, for example, this is the thing. I will just add a nuance to that, because I think when it comes down to the application of this advice or this goal, there are two levels from a psychological point of view. Also, there are two levels in this. One is that I know, and the other is I do. So very often we know about it. Yeah. And the challenge with this knowing is that for the brain, unfortunately, it does not distinguish between what it knows and what it is actually doing. The brain does not know the difference between a dream state, so what you see as ideals, and what you might actually be doing. So sometimes, especially with a lot of spiritual organizations, I see it around, the challenge is that because one knows it, one also somewhere convinces oneself that one is doing it. Knowing and doing are not identical. Ideally, they should be. So what can happen is there is this these small insincerities, these justifications that creep in. All of us, I mean, we're all subject to these discrepancies that happen. So what I again really appreciate is in the organization that like Shrinimesh ji and yesterday Shri Ratnakar ji and all, this constant reminder that, watch what is actually happening. So that sincerity of intent in translating honestly from vision to execution. So the Satyam they have told, we can see the Satya. The challenge is in doing it right. And the more we can narrow this gap, automatically we will be in that Ananda that is promised. So that's Satyamritam Brihat.
Yes.
And that is that dharma that each individual has to discover. Your dharma cannot be the same as mine.
Yes.
Because we're constitutionally, nature is too brilliant to repeat an experiment. She's just too brilliant to waste her energies repeating with two people.
Exactly.
So it's a unique model. Everybody is customized, unique model. With maybe 99.9% same or 999% same. But it cannot be 100.
100, yeah.
And therefore that 0.00001 is what is left in the universe to enlighten. And that is that entire, the 0.000.1 is what we have to contribute to the world, And that is where that sincerity and understanding one's tendencies and acting, that is what makes it worthwhile.
Yeah.
So in the ashram again, the mother would say that every single defect that we can overcome, every single thing is resolving a problem for the universe.
Wow.
And that's why it's important for each one of us to work out our issues. Because then the universe has solved it for all times.
You are unconsciously helping someone else deal with it now with more power.
Exactly. It has been solved. So the consciousness has captured this solution and can facilitate, like they've seen with they call it the 100th monkey story, where they saw that monkeys in one island, they would wash the potatoes and eat it. And then when the 100th monkey did it, suddenly in another island, the monkeys were starting by washing the potatoes. So there is these quantum leaps of consciousness that take place, this transference of solutions that happens. And therefore, if each one of us very sincerely tried to overcome our own challenges, then it contributes. It's not for nothing. Every single step overcome, every single hurdle overcome is a cosmic victory.
Cosmic victory. Yeah. In fact, that's the philosophy of the laser, right? You have one light. You have, you can have so many tube lights, but you have one laser.
And it transforms.
And it can cut through anything.
True.
And it can do things that can leave lasting impressions.
True. And it is in this context that the whole process of yoga becomes relevant. Because you gave the example of the laser, I'll make the analogy here, is that the human being is also a system of vibrations, like we said. So physically there are vibratory patterns, emotionally there are vibratory patterns, mentally there are vibratory patterns, and higher Vijnana and Anandamaya, there are vibratory patterns that are there. Now, usually it's a very noisy mess. Okay, and that's what the tamasic quality would be. There's a lot of... Then there are times when there is a little more enlightenment, and then we follow in a particular desired direction. But the goal is when we can align all of this. So that chitta vritti nirodha, when we are able to align, then at a vibratory level, we become like a laser. Yeah. Then what you point out is what changes. So when they talk of Sathya in the Yoga Sutras, the practice of Sathya is one of the yamas, the yama niyamas. Yes. So in the practice of Sathya, the result of that, they say, is that what they say will happen.
Yes.
All of us talk about what happens. But people who practice, like Bhagavan and all, who practice Satya as a life mode, they have acquired that ability of that, what Pitraji also ended yesterday, that manasekam, vachasekam, karmanekam. This alignment of the being will necessarily, it's not again a miraculous thing.
Yes.
It's the law of physics that says if you've aligned everything, then you become like a laser. And what you point towards, you are bound to transform. Consciously or unconsciously. Just the presence will make it happen.
I think that's where rishis were. That's how rishis were.
Correct.
And that's why miracles become a part of you.
Norm. It becomes a norm.
Yeah.
And the beauty is that in the Shakuntalam, for example, they talk of the fact that when Bharata, he has refused to recognize Shakuntala, and Menaka takes her off to the Loka, to another world. And at some point, Dushyanta has gone to fight for the gods, and he's won the battle, and he's coming back to Prithvi Loka, but he halts at this Loka. And in that Loka, he's seeing that suddenly everything is in harmony. Like even the creatures that have a natural animosity are friends. So like the snake and the frog. So all natural enemies are friends. And then you realize the power of the being of this quality. Because if we are in harmony, great souls who are in harmony, they have their magnetic force is such that it can actually transform the natural core tendencies of the negative also. And we've seen that in ever so many cases in terms of stories also, where people are totally transformed when they come in touch with a total enlightened master, because that light is so brilliant that suddenly the darkness falls, literally. And in this context, I'll just share that mantra, which is Asato Ma Sadgamaya.
Yes.
Because the reason I want to share it is because one of my teachers had indicated a very original translation of that, which highlights the point that we were making. So the usual translation is Asato Ma Sadgamaya, take me from darkness to light. And Gammaya means make me go. It's not I go. That is an important grammatical clarification to have. So it says Asato Ma Sadgamaya. If you break it up, it is Asataha Ma Sat Gamaya. So make me go, Gamaya, Ma. From where? Asataha. From untruth. So Sat, Asat, absence of that.
Yes.
To Sat. So make me go from untruth to truth. Second line. Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya. Make me go from darkness or tamas to light. Finally, Mrityor Ma Amritang Gamaya. Make me go from Mrityoho Ma Amritang Gamaya. Now, if you get into the grammar of the words Asataha, Tamasaha and Mrityoho, in the Vibhakti form, this is the normally translated as the Panchami Vibhakti. What is Panchami Vibhakti? That says Apadanakara. It means it's separating out. It is a separation from. So, Asataha, from untruth to truth. That's the preposition. But Asataha can also mean off. So it can mean off untruth, which means what? Now the translation becomes, make me go to the truth of the untruth. Make me go to the light of the darkness. Make me go to the immortality of death. And where does that tie into the larger worldview of the Bharatiya thought processes or the Bharatiya Drishti? Was that we do not have an absolute negative. So for us, darkness, so when the Supreme Consciousness said Ekoham Bahusyam, how did it become what it is not? It suddenly withdrew itself. So if it was all light, it withdrew its energy and suddenly darkness was there. But that darkness could not have existed without the light.
Correct.
How do we know? I cannot tell you, bring me darkness.
Yes.
I can tell you, create darkness.
Correct.
By putting off the lights.
Correct.
But if I tell you, bring me darkness, you cannot do that.
It's just absence of light.
It is absence of light. So asataha is the absence of sat. Okay, which means that it is hiding the sat behind it.
Correct.
So instead of saying from one condition to another, you say, take me to the truth of the untruth. Take me to the light of the darkness.
Awesome.
Take me to the immortality of death. And this is what in the Savitri also Sri Aurobindo tells through the words of Savitri to Yamraj. When he's saying, why are you trying so hard to take back the soul? Satyavan, he's died and she's following to get him back. So, why are you trying so hard? He says that empires have come and gone. Philosophies have perished. Everything comes for a shelf life and it goes. Why are you trying so hard to preserve all these things? For how much longer? And then what? Anyway, it will go. So why not now and then later? Then she gives this supreme divine mother's answer. She says that even you exist because I allowed you to exist. So even death is not an absolute reality. Life is. She says even you exist because I allowed you to exist. And now I have laid my claim on that soul. Side. It's like grand visions. And the beauty of the Bharatiya civilization was this grand vision. The Vedas is this grand vision of potentials of humanity that one should go towards.
And coming back to the medium to understand all these grand visions, which are codified in the language, that is Sanskrit, it is as vast as the divine itself. It seems like that because there are so many interpretations that can come. As you think deeper and deeper, there are so many layers to it, isn't it?
Correct. So the way I understand the origin of the Sanskrit language itself, because I think one needs to distinguish between two things here. One is that language as a gateway to an experience, to a truth. So you can arrive at the truth without language also. That option remains.
Yes.
So language is a gateway.
Yes.
All right. In which case language can become a communicator, which most languages are. They're communicators of realities. But in certain cases, like with the Sanskrit language especially, it is a creator of those experiences as well. Because of the truth nature of the language.
Yes.
It becomes a reflection of a certain truth consciousness, which then allows us to experience, because the language is creating through sound combinations a certain experience. All right, having said that, the Vedic Rishis, this is how I like to talk about it and understand it for myself. So the Vedic Rishis recognize that all of life is how you are interpreting it. So the filters, and therefore the decisions you are making are short term. And life, there is a beginning and an end to the stories. So how do we improve efficiency within the system? So in order to improve efficiency, you have to see things as such. If you can see things as such, then the chances of making the better decision is heightened. So then you will go possibly on the right way. Now, in order to see things as such, one has to clean up the filters, the internal filters. So in the process, they quietened their being. And in the quietness of their being, they suddenly opened up to the... So, like I said, if you imagine it's a very noisy pattern, and there are vibrations outside. And then when you quieten your being, like a clean slate, suddenly these vibrations can have their impact on a clean slate. Right? And what I am, even within that quietness, there were questions. Who am I? Where am I going? So there are directions of the quietened vibrations also. It was not still. It was quietened in that sense, focused. So in that question, there were the answers. The universe responded in that. So there are truths out there. All knowledge is out there. What do we mean by that? That, like, if you have a telescope, a more sophisticated telescope, it gives you access to more stars.
Correct.
But it never creates the stars.
Yes.
So everything is out there.
Already there.
Our instruments only giving access.
Access.
Okay. So in this, and that instrument is made by the human mind.
Correct.
So the question they had is, can the human mind directly access? So when they quietened like that, and they had very specific targeted queries, existential queries, then those frequencies came back. So the answer existed, which is para. And then when it came and interfaced with the human consciousness, it became pashyanti. You see that. Okay, and then you remember that it's a quietened system. So it is translating through the being, madhyama. And then it is getting uttered, vaikhari. So it mapped itself onto the human vocal system in a very perfect manner, which is the Sanskrit language. And what Sri Aurobindo calls more the Deva Bhasha, which had retained much more. The Vedic language is closest to that thing, to that form of language. So then it mapped itself out. Therefore, you see this incredible connection that Sanskrit retains with cosmic sounds. So if somebody studied astrology, you've got the Sarvato Bhadra chart, where every planet has a certain letter, everything. So when we utter it, because everything is vibration, there are many things that start vibrating at the same level. So then you start understanding that if you're going and doing a puja and you have to offer this particular flower to this particular god, what is the connection? These are all scope for research. What is the connection there? What is the vibratory quality of that? What is the vibratory? What are the amplifications that are happening when you're saying this particular mantras to that particular thing? So basically then there was this completely undistorted expression, articulation of a vibratory seeing. So the para gets translated into pashyanti through the system and then into vaikhari. No? And therefore the mantra thing is, again, it's reversed because it has not come out of the human mind. The source is elsewhere.
Okay.
And therefore another unique feature of the Sanskrit language is that there is no verb to have. You cannot say, like I say, I have a book. So you can't say, you would say mama pustakam asti. And you see in all the other languages, we do not in Bharata have a verb to have. We only have the verb is. Asti.
It is there.
It is. The book is with me. The book is important. I am trusty. I happen to possess it. But it's very, very different from the European sets of language that says, I have a book. So the focus of the civilization was always on being.
Yes.
not on having.
Yes.
Possession as a necessary means for arthakama. Definitely goals, but not intrinsic in their existential quality. What was important was who are we because of what we have or because of what we don't have. But the being was important and the quality of that. I mean, these are like fabulous. So that's what Sanskrit, I mean, I talk about Sanskrit and it's just a conversation that can go on for a very long time because each dimension of this language is so elevating, I tell you. So elevating. Just the sounds of it, the pranayamic value of this language, the what it does to the brain. 26 letters of the English language with the few other sounds that are there versus 49 plus others. Just the brain massage of it is very different.
Correct. Exactly.
And the flexibility, the hearing, the speech, the prana, the connections with the whole universe. Every letter corresponds to a chakra, the chakra movement when one is doing that. It's like a whole universe in itself, this language. Universe, pluriverses, it's not just universe. So that's why I say it's like Sanskrita yoga. It's not just Sanskrit, it's Sanskrita yoga actually.
Every child in Bharat should learn Sanskrit. Because if you want to understand our culture, you have to learn this language.
Sathya.
And as you said, it is also the smartest way of acquiring knowledge and smartest way of life and living, because as you learn Sanskrit, if you can master Sanskrit, you can pick up any other language in the world.
Absolutely.
If you can master Sanskrit, your IQ would have definitely improved. Your memory would have definitely improved. If you can pronounce all the sounds that are there in Sanskrit, you can pronounce any sound of the world. If you can write Sanskrit, then the dexterity of both your hands would be as great as your hands can be, isn't it?
Sure. I'll contextualize all that you have said. So one, for example, that one can learn Sanskrit from a very mechanical perspective, in which case it might not deliver her full promise. So Sanskrit has to be studied very consciously, which means that if one is studying Sanskrit, then one has to try and be as conscious of the Sathya of the language, which is the pronunciation, be respectful of the grammar, because only when one is doing, it's a language of a lot of consciousness. So one has to hold up one's consciousness to be correct. It's not unlike other languages where you can just say it and communication is not its sole goal.
Yes.
I'm not saying that other languages, if you speak wrong grammar and all, it's okay. No. But in Sanskrit, more so. Like in Sanskrit, I'll tell you the call for precision is. In several other languages, we are not necessarily called to pay attention to the quantum of breath that we are applying in every single uttered sound. In Sanskrit, you cannot utter a sound without your brain calculating how much of breath has to go into this. Like kha. If I say, give me a word. If I say, if I say kala or color, or I say khala, just the kha, color would mean maybe the sound of the river, kala. And if I say khala, it means a cheat.
Yeah.
So just this one letter, if I'm putting in a different breath quantum, it is completely changing. And again, I understand that this is a feature with several other languages where if you're a little bit anna or anna, it'll make difference in Kannada, for example. So it's not that it is exclusive, but in Sanskrit, the call for awareness of breath on every sound is much higher. And therefore, since breathing is our most fundamental property of existence, and we're not normally conscious of breath, the Sanskrit language sort of subconsciously programs us to start paying attention to breath. Then duration of vowels. All of this start impacting time and space in certain ways. And so it matters. And therefore, so that is one aspect of it in terms of its pronunciation. And the fine-tuning, therefore, that happens between what you're saying, what you're hearing, which facilitates learning of other sounds, if one has worked on it consciously. The second part is the grammar, because the grammar is if this, then that, if this, then that. Total computer logic. If prathama vibhakti, ekavachanam, akaranta, pullinga, then abalaha. That. So the entire thing is if this, then that, if this, then that. All right. So when the brain has understood how to capture language and systematize it, then when it gets exposed to new languages, the brain is like an operating system that knows exactly what to do with the grammar of that language. So you create an almost virus-free operating system for language acquisition. Then once you go into the content of our Shastras, they're so brilliant in the classification, sub-classification, that completely changes your drishti in looking at precision of things. And it is this multiplication of precision at all levels, which was the feature of Saraswati, what Sri Aurobindo says. He doesn't call her really the mother goddess of knowledge. He says she's the goddess of skill in works. And that is why Bharat was where she was in terms of the prosperity. Because in every dimension of life, she had put in that energy and the trouble to acquire precise skill in that. And then that knowledge applied through that precise skill gave products of high quality, which became in demand all over the world. So it is bringing back this ability for precision. So today, if we look at ourselves, we become very complacent with precisions. It's a matter of consciousness, which is like kam chalao. And language, because it's the most natural uttered thing, can become a very, very powerful tool to again bring back precision. So if I'm writing Bharata, if I am saying Bharata, either you write a double A-R-A-B-T-A, T-A, not Bharat, and not write Bharata and say Bharat. And Bharat doesn't mean anything. Bharata, that at the end does a lot of things. So all these words and what language is, how we are uttering it, whether we are compromising on something or we are saying the whole thing. Like if I say Rama, it's R, R-A, M-A, right? R-A, M-A, Rama. But in languages like Hindi, we'll say Ram. So we are compromising on what is written. And that compromise is not just, it's communication ho gaya. So most of us are concerned about communication. But it has done something to consciousness. And we have lost that connection. And then we've got compromised on many levels, subtly. Then what happens? And then if you say Rama, that at the end is a tremendous placer of consciousness. Rama, does that. So these are fabulous. So I said Sanskrit is like fabulous dimensions, and it's a matter of discovery. It's a matter of experience with the language.
It is as vast, as mysterious, as powerful as the divine himself.
Satyam.
And I think if everybody in Bharat takes to it, and I think definitely the revolution or the rise in consciousness,
absolutely,
that we would want,
absolutely,
will happen so seamlessly because they will just tap into
the existing. Correct. So just in terms of a realization in space, you say Aham Brahmasmi.
Yes.
In sounds, it is Aham Omkarosmi. That Om is also the source of the Sanskrit. In that sense, it's the source of all other sounds and knowledge and all. But for sure, if we are able to pull up our consciousness, it's really this pulling up of the consciousness to, in a very mundane context of daily expression, it holds huge potential, is what I can say.
Beautiful.
And so the courses that I have also, so there are
I mean, you have been very passionate, and you have been spending so much time trying to ensure that people take to Sanskrit and they do it as a joyful experience as well as a very serious experience, so that it will awaken them even as they learn a language. And every time when we converse with you, we get these beautiful insights which are coded in the language.
Sathya.
And that really thrills you. If you look at the language with that reverence, the language itself will give it to us.
Absolutely.
Ma Saraswati will give it to us. And
Absolutely.
I think that is, and as many number of people are there, that many interpretations can be got.
Absolutely.
That is how vast
and
it is.
what is beautiful is that the interpretations can vary,
Yeah.
but behind it you will
Yes.
see a common thing. You can recognize. I'll give you another one last on this one. So there is the word apatti. Okay, so apatti in common parlance means objection,
Yeah.
problem, danger. It can have this whole range of job. When I was reading something in Shankaracharya, the word apatti came in the context of realization. Exactly. So there is like, what's the connection? Same word. How does it have such a diverse range from all the way from realization to danger? Okay. So then you dig into the word itself. So the word is formed of apatti. So pat means fall. Patti means that which has fallen. And means towards oneself. So something has fallen upon me, which is realization.
Oh.
Realization is when it falls upon me,
Wow.
right? So you can look at it from that angle. Now, how does it become obstacle and how does it become a danger and all of that? So danger also, it can come upon us, that can be there. Now, in communication, supposing I am trying to say something and you are to understand, like Sanskrit is the best language. Supposing I have to make a communication and I'm convinced about what I'm said and I'm very egoistic, you have to understand in one shot. So I said, Sanskrit is the best language in the world. But everybody sitting doesn't necessarily agree. So they might say, excuse me, an objection. Now, what has happened is, in that person's listening, they have realized that, no, I'm from Tamil Nadu. I think Tamil is also a good language. What is the basis for saying that Sanskrit is the best? It is just a realization that every language has its own beauty. How can somebody claim that one language is the best? Okay, I'm giving this just as an example.
Yes.
So, that person has a realization that maybe there is a gap. It's not a completely 100% acceptable statement as such. Now, if I am a egoistic speaker, I would say, how dare you ask? So your realization becomes my threat. It becomes an obstacle to what I'm saying.
Okay.
You understand?
Oh.
But if I want to be a good communicator, I will welcome every realization.
Yes.
I'll say, Acha, why are you saying what you're saying?
Yes.
And then I will rethink my statement.
Correct.
That maybe it was not as complete or it was not as convincing.
Yes.
I might be convinced, but maybe I was not able to frame it in a way that will convince you. So I will again creatively read. So a good speaker would actually invite a lot of objections, apathies, their personal realizations.
Yes. Yeah.
So that the communication becomes finally more full and my understanding becomes broadened. So again, like I said, it's just one word, but it can be the whole secret of communication.
Yes.
In that.
And I think that's the beauty of Sanskrit. That is the beauty of our culture. I think that's the profundity of our spirituality. And I think that is what Prasanthi is. Prasanthi takes us from Ashanti to Prashanti to Prakanti to Param Jyoti. And I think that is the journey that happens. Whoever comes here and wherever you are, you can create that Prashanti once we connect to that source.
True.
So
that's why I said unconditional love. The love that you feel with the Bhagwan is, it's like an ocean of...
And that love can do anything.
Yeah.
That love can open up anything.
Can open up anything.